Have you ever known someone who was diagnosed late in life with autism, and then it seems like they start acting more autistic after they've been diagnosed? We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about masking, which has a lot to do with this topic. And it's really important and helpful if you're not autistic to understand about this. Hi, everybody. I'm Alice K. Ruckelhaus from SufferingWell. Welcome to my splinter of the cross. Let me just say that this topic today is something that I've wondered about myself. I actually, kind of surprisingly, have not had anybody say, gosh, you're acting more autistic after you've been diagnosed. I noticed that about myself, and I thought, is this kind of like self-suggestion or something? Or what is it? Why am I doing this? And in listening to other people talk about their experience, I realized why this is. So let's talk about it. To understand this, you have to understand masking. Masking is something that people on the spectrum do because they want to seem normal. They want to seem like everyone else. And so, especially people who don't know that they're autistic, we spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure out social norms and how we're supposed to act. And so we're not really ourselves. We spend a lot of time acting and pretending to be like you. And I remember that as a child, as a teenager, and even as an adult, just trying to figure out how I'm supposed to act. And part of that, you've heard me talk about how I was misunderstood as being rebellious, especially like about the time that my friend and I wanted to step up and help with leading singing. And, there were people who felt like we were rebellious because of that. And I can't speak for her, but for myself, I was not being rebellious. I was just trying to be helpful. And I still cannot figure out what was wrong with wanting to do that. Anyway, I won't rehash all that. If you're not sure about it, I'll link that down in the description box below. But, just a lot of things like that. And so it's very stressful when we're misjudged. And so we do everything that we can to not be misjudged. I remember in high school, a woman in our church, Laura Wiggins, she was so helpful to me. I didn't know I had autism. She didn't know I had autism, but I called her daughter one time on the phone and I just said, hi, is Pam there? And Laura said to me, Alice K., you need to stop and say hello to the person answering the phone. And she explained to me about small talk and stuff. I had no clue. But she was so nice about it. She didn't make me feel bad at all. And so she taught me small talk. And now, because I teach Chinese students English, I teach them about small talk because apparently that's not something that they do either. They think it's very strange, but I tell them about how important it is. We ask, how are you? And the person says, fine, even if they're contemplating suicide. Okay, but that's just something that you have to do. And, things like that, those are just a mystery to us. They don't make sense. So we just act it out. That's called masking. Sometimes it's done in big ways. Sometimes it's done in small ways. And we're not trying to be fake. We're just trying to fit into your world. Kind of think of us as aliens who have been sent here against our will. And we're trying to figure out this culture and fit in, not so that we can be fake, not just to people please, but so we don't get attacked. And also because, many of us genuinely want to be part of your world. We really want to serve you and help you and so on. But so often serving someone is taken like as an insult or something, or it's taken the wrong way. One thing, this is kind of funny, I guess, but every time that I am nice to a cop, I get in trouble. One time I had a cop behind me when I was going through, it's Carl's Jr., it's Hardee's in the East, but in the West it's Carl's Jr. I was going through Carl's Jr. I saw a cop behind me and I asked how much his order was and I paid for it just to be nice because we really appreciate them. And I happen to know that the cops in our town were not well paid. And anyway, he chased me down on the road, pulled me over and asked why I did that. And he said, that could be taken as a bribe. I was like, I was just trying to say thank you. You know, I've had a number of experiences like that. Okay, so that's, it's like we're trying to do something nice and it gets misunderstood. And that's not to blame the people who misunderstood us necessarily. Sometimes it is. But a lot of times, it's just because we don't do it quite right. Okay, sometimes we do the right thing, but it feels funny to other people. That's because we're trying to do the right thing, but we don't know exactly how to do it. So we seem very awkward. So that's masking, and that's why we mask. So when someone is diagnosed later in life, in their 20s, or like me in their 60s, and I've heard of some even in their 70s finally being diagnosed, you can have different feelings about it. Some people feel upset about it because, especially older people, because there's been such a stigma on autism in the past, and there still is to a certain degree, but I think people are starting to understand it a little bit more, and even appreciate it. There are some companies that hire people with autism, not out of charity, but because they know that we have things that we can do better than other people just because we're autistic. So I think it is becoming less of a stigma, but older people especially, I think, tend to have more of an upsetting reaction to it. For me, it was a relief. I remember when I told my mom, I told her on the phone, and she didn't say anything for a few seconds, and then she said, that explains a lot. And she wasn't saying that as an insult or anything. It really did explain a lot because there were a lot of things from my childhood, like she liked to move the furniture around when she cleaned, and it really freaked me out. And I would just go in my room and just cry and cry and cry and cry, just inconsolably, especially if she moved the piano. That really upset me. And I should have been really appreciative of it. But, we didn't know that I was autistic. And she probably would have, been a little bit more careful if she had known. And I would have been able to explain why it bothered me, maybe, if I knew. But, we didn't know. So it was kind of weird. And she never punished me for that. I'm so glad. Because a lot of people who were autistic, their parents punished them for, falling apart when something happened, and it was something that they couldn't help. But anyway, so it was really a relief to me to get this diagnosis because it explained why I am the way I am. So what does that have to do with acting more autistic once you get the diagnosis? Well, if you have that relieved feeling, you realize, okay, I am the way that I am. And there's a reason for it. It's not because I'm mean or rude or crazy or weird. It's just how I am. And you start to accept yourself the way that you are. And so you stop masking quite so much. Most of us probably do mask a lot still because, like I said, we're in your world. And so we have to, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, you know? So, we have to, if we want to have anything to do with other people at all, we have to mask some. I'm not sure if you're autistic and you have completely unmasked, let me know. I'd like to hear about that. I really would. For me, there's no way that I could completely unmask and still be around people, which is another thing. I'll talk some other time about why some of us tend to isolate ourselves. I isolate myself to a very, very great degree. Pretty much the only place I go is to church and not anywhere else. because interacting with people is so incredibly stressful for me. I'm starting to cry. Sorry. So yeah, so we stop masking so much. And so then you notice those autistic behaviors and they might bother you. They might make you feel uncomfortable. Um, I'm not the kind of person who wants to demand that other people accept me how I am and, make accommodations for me or anything. I really don't expect that. But if you do want to be helpful to someone who's autistic, you could try to understand that and maybe do make some accommodations for them. It will be greatly appreciated. It's very stressful to keep masking. It's also maybe a little less stressful, but still stressful to unmask, to see if people can accept you the way that you are. And honestly, most people can't. And in some ways, I don't blame them. Um, but it does, it is really, that's probably the hardest thing for me is when people don't accept me as I am. But I really don't expect them to, because who I am is not what you want me to be. Um, yeah, so the unmasking it's important because masking is very, very stressful. It takes a lot of effort, and just being exhausted can lead to a meltdown, and masking makes us exhausted. It's also, in some ways, it's lacking integrity, because it's not that you're trying to be fake or anything, but you're not being who you really are. And of course, who we really are is horrible sinners. And so we want to try to not be sinful, but being autistic in and of itself is not sinful. So allowing ourselves to be ourselves is very, very difficult, very stressful, but less stressful than masking, to be honest. And so anyway, if you know somebody who has been diagnosed later in life, later meaning like before, not when they were a child, but anytime after, you can pray for them for sure. You can try to understand them. Sometimes some people will be very willing to talk about it. Other people want their privacy. But if someone's willing to talk about it and they want to talk about it and it's helpful to them, like I'm finding that doing these videos, surprisingly, I was really scared to do them, but I knew that I needed to because I felt like it would help people. I'm finding it to be very helpful to me to share this. And I'm also finding some people's reactions, those of you who write encouraging comments, they do not go unnoticed. Usually David answers them because I'm really right now trying to not be involved in anything interpersonal because I was really close to a meltdown. I'm kind of moving away from that. But so I don't do as much interaction with that. I don't write back to very many comments, but he does share the encouraging ones with me. And I appreciate it so much. You guys, you have no idea. It is like a lifeline. It really is. So if you can just, encourage the person who is autistic and, help them to feel a little bit more comfortable, try to take as much as possible, try to take their oddities, what are oddities to you, try to take those in stride. And I would especially love to hear from some of you who are not on the spectrum, but someone who is, and maybe you've been able to help them somewhat, not by trying to get them to conform to the way that everybody else is, but you've been supportive of them and stuff. If you could share some of those in the comments below, or if you don't want to share it publicly, you can email us. Our email is in the description box below, but things like that would be really helpful for us to be able to share with people. All right, I love you all. I hope that this series is helping you, whether you're autistic and you just need to know that someone else understands what you're going through, or if you're autistic and maybe this is helping you to understand what's going on. Like, watching some videos helped me to understand, why am I acting more autistic now that I've been diagnosed? that really was helpful to find out. Or if you're not autistic and you're either trying to help someone who is, or praying for someone who is, or if you don't even know someone who's autistic and you're praying for us, oh, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you. All right, I love you all. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.